we're not just talking about maybe someone with a couple $1 million. We're talking about presidents, people of major worldwide corporations, some of the largest companies on planet Earth. Some of these people are alleged to be involved. I want to make that clear. The files, I'm not wanting to point immediate. We still want, there needs to be an investigation into all of this. That's what needs to happen next. Is that people mentioned in these files or that have claims against them for doing allegedly illegal or highly unethical dealings need to be public. There needs to be some kind of investigation from the DOJ, the FBI, Homeland Security. All of these agencies need to be looking into this stuff as well. That's because we have a right as the citizens of the country to know what is going on. If Bill Gates is involved or compromised like this, Microsoft, one of the biggest companies on planet Earth, if the owner of that is compromised or being blackmailed by Epstein or anything related to that, that's a problem and it needs to be looked into. Same with the presidents, whether it's Bill, Donald, George Bush, or anyone like that. There needs to be some kind of investigation. And as the public, we should push for that. So let's go back to 2019. I'm not going to go all the way back. I'll do a brief little spiel about, we know didn't even graduate school and was able to teach at a college. Doesn't make much sense there. How we received all of his finances and cash, that's also suspect and kind of weird. Doesn't really make sense, right? That this guy, he's not a genius by any means. There's a lot of good accountants or people good with taxes that aren't given hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars or an island or a jet or anything like that. It's very strange. Maybe we'll do more episodes in the future about a prolonged history. But really for tonight, I'm wanting to get with recent events of the past 6 to 7 years. Let's go 2019. He dies under mysterious circumstances. He was arrested prior, obviously. And there's really an outrage or just more questions are raised from his death than anything before, because we know back a little further back, we know in I believe 06 or 08, he's arrested in Florida. He's given a sweetheart deal for 1 year, and I believe even during that year it was limited release or limited suspicion, or he didn't have to be spectated that much, for example, or monitored. So got off with a pretty good deal the last time. Obviously there's public outrage. We're looking at the population not understanding what's happening. All we really know is that there's all of this shady dealings going on. No one can really, as I said earlier, we have a right to know what happened. And a lot of these, whether it's people running for office or the president or whoever, promised transparency with that. But as we know, that didn't really come that easy this year. It was kind of the cast of characters on SpongeBob pushing the city when Patrick suggested to move the city. It took a lot of effort from a lot of people to get this done because there was a lot of resistance for this information to be released of what we even do have right now. There were 6 million files. We got around half that. A little over half that. So there's still millions and millions that are outstanding. Hello, Ron. Hello. Thank you for joining the stream tonight. Appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully we can learn a couple of things. Excuse me. Now here's the confidant, the Robin to the Batman. Ghislaine Maxwell is seen as a pretty key figure in this entire thing. We know she's still living, at least as of the beginning of this stream, and that I believe she transferred to a prison in Florida several months ago or something like that. She's in 21, 22, case happens, is convicted, given 2 decades in prison, and we're looking at a lot to where she was. We'll read a document here in a second, but she began building trust with these young girls and women, groomed them into visiting the island and then performing acts inappropriate actions on the island. And here's kind of what she did. Let's say there's a young one, maybe they want to get into modeling, and she can say, well, come to the island, we'll help you out, maybe training or give you tips or advice or fashion advice, whatever it was. And oh yeah, Jeff, he likes to be massaged. We'll compensate you financially if you give Jeff a massage. That was his thing. That was his. He was obviously a very mentally ill individual, but that was his thing that got him going. He liked being massaged by these young girls and young women. They're like, we'll give you money, just massage him. And maybe the first or second time, nothing really crazy happened. Maybe it was just a massage. Maybe even clothes were still, all parties had clothes on, etc. And the women and the young girls were like, okay, well, this is strange, right? This is something that's not normal by any means, but it wasn't the craziest thing in the world or that I've seen in history. So they got their money, they go back home, and they're like, okay, they're reached out to again. Then maybe the third or fourth time there's some kind of an escalation, for example. Not wanting to get particularly graphic, but you can just kind of in your head, you can kind of play the story. The more times they visit, right. So we're going to pull up the press release from the DOJ, and we're going to read a lot of it together, and it's going to provide a lot of context, I believe, for you. So here we're going to pull that up real quick. Okay. Here's the guy. Ghislaine Maxwell sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse minors. June 20. So this is summer of 2022. This is just a couple months before the 22 midterms. This is halfway through Joe Biden's presidency, around them. Quote, Damian Williams, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, announced that Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced today in a Manhattan federal court by a U.S. Circuit Court Judge Allison J. Nathan to 240 months in prison for her role in to exploit and abuse minor girls with Epstein over a decade. Previously found guilty in late 2021 of conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport minors to participate in illegal sex acts, transporting a minor to participate in illegal sex acts, and sex trafficking conspiracy and sex trafficking of a minor. From at least 94 and then to around 2004, Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and participated in Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping Epstein recruit, groom, and abuse victims known to them under the age of 18. Right, and as I kind of mentioned earlier, Maxwell was the starter for, it wasn't just immediately about giving Jeffrey a massage. It was, how's school going? How's mom and dad doing? What are the good movies going on? What do you and your friends like a favorite store in the mall? Kind of building that trust. And as we know, unfortunately, a lot of these girls and young women in situations, they're afraid of saying no, whether it's a fear or not wanting to upset another party, right? So let's just keep that in mind, not being rude, that it's just a reality. As Maxwell and Epstein intended, grooming behaviors left minor victims vulnerable and susceptible to abuse by Epstein. Maxwell was then present for certain sexual encounters between minor victims and Epstein, such as interactions where a minor victim was undressed, and ultimately was present for inappropriate acts perpetrated by Epstein on minor victims. That abuse included sexualized messages during which a minor victim was fully or partially nude, as well as group sexualized massages of Epstein involving a minor victim where Maxwell was present. In some instances, she was a part of the abusing. So you kind of get the picture here. And we're going to go back to the slide deck, but hopefully that kind of helps you understand a little bit deeper her role into it all. It would have been much harder for all of this to occur without her. Like I said, the Batman to the Robin, the top handyman of the operation was a big key in it.